Okay, so this will be the part 3 of estimation of parameter. So for now, I am going to discuss error and sample size in estimating the population. So error is computed by this formula. The error is given by or represented by the variable e. So to compute for the error rather, we are going to multiply the corresponding z value for a certain level of confidence to the standard deviation, and then we are going to divide the product by the square root of the sample size. Now, the formula for computing the sample size is n is equal to uh, z sub alpha over 2, or the z value for a certain level of confidence, multiplied by the standard deviation divided by the error, or e. Okay, so this whole thing here will be multiplied to itself. Okay, yun yung ibig sabihin ng exponent na. So for our first example, let us have yeah. So for our first example, it is given that on the previous slide, supposedly there is a problem there, but hindi siya nagpakita. So let us just say, x bar is 24,500, sigma is 3,900, the z value is 2.576, and the sample size is 100. Okay, why is it 2.576? Because the level of confidence here is 99%. Okay, now to compute for the error, we have this formula, and then we are going to replace the variables by their values. So z is replaced by 2.576. So ayan yan. Sigma, which is 3,900. Ayun, pinalitan ko lang siya. And then yung n dito, pinalitan ko ng 100. Now, if you're going to insert or to put this on your calculator, yan, pwede niya siyang lagay ng ganyan. So, in other words, we are going to multiply 2.576 to 3,900. After multiplying 2.576 to 3,900, we are going to divide it by square root of 100, which is 10. Now, ang lalabas na sagot dyan ay 1,004.64. Rounded ito sa 2 decimal place. Or, hindi niya round off. Hindi ko alam eh. I'm not so sure because I was not able to recompute this. Nakalimutan ko na. Pero alam ko ito yung sagot. Kung ni-round off ba ito talaga yung mismong sagot. Ayun. Nasa airport kasi ako ngayon, kaya medyo maingay. Okay. So, for the next example, ayan. In a study of physical attractiveness and mental disorders, 231 subjects were rated for attractiveness. And the resulting mean and standard deviation are 3.94, this is the mean, and 0.75, and this is the standard deviation respectively. So we are going to determine the sample size necessary to estimate the sample mean, assuming you want a 95% confidence interval and a margin of error of 0.05. So our goal here is to compute for or determine the sample size. So our given is S as 0.75, X bar as 3.94, E or the margin of error as 0.05. And since we have a 95% level of confidence, our Z value is 1.96. So actually, in this case, we don't need the sample mean because we only need the sample mean if we are going to have, or if we're going to get the confidence interval. But since we are only asked for the sample size, it is not necessary to include or it is not or the mean is not needed on this computation. Okay, so so I think given, this is the given earlier. Now, we have your n. By the way, this formula can also be, or it is also similar to uh, having n is greater than or equal to, or in other words, this equal can also be replaced by greater than or equal to, because if we have this formula, it only tells us the minimum sample size that we must have. It is not uh, it is not necessarily for our sample size to be exact. It can be it can be um, the n itself, or any number greater than n. So substitution, replacing z by 1.96. Okay, so since the value of z is 1.96, replacing sigma by 0.75, replace e by 0.05. Now, if I when I inserted this on my calculate, the result is 864.36. But since we do not want any decimal point for the sample size, I mean, if we have if this represent the number of human being, there is no human being which is 0.36. Okay, now since we have 864.36, we can round it up, so we will have 865. Okay, since the minimum is 864.36, we cannot have 864. So the minimum, or the smallest, or the smallest number of least number of sample size is 865. Okay, next lesson is interval estimation of the population proportion. So if p hat, this is read as p hat, and this one is square root of p hat q hat over n are the mean. Actually, this must be sample proportion and the standard deviation respectively. Oopsie. Okay, and this one is the level of confidence. Level of confidence interval p is given by, okay, so it tells us that the estimate, or the interval estimate of p, is given by this. Actually, it is just similar to the interval estimate for the population mean. The only difference is, instead of having mu on the middle, we have p. Instead of having x bar, we have p hat. Instead of having x bar here, we have p hat. Here, it is also minus. In this case, we also have here plus. So this is also replaced. Okay, so how are we going to obtain q hat? Q hat is given by the formula 1 minus p. Okay, so to give you an example, in a survey, 1,000 grade 7 students were asked if they read storybooks. So there were 318 who said yes. The first question is, what proportion of the students does not read storybooks? Now, and for the second one, use 95% confidence interval to determine the proportion of all grade 7 students who read storybooks. So for the first one, I let p hat be the proportion of students who read storybooks, and let q hat be the proportion of the student who does not read storybooks. So q hat, as I said earlier, it is 1 minus p hat. So it must be p hat, no, not p. So p hat is 318 over 1,000, because there are 318 students who said they are reading storybooks out of 1,000. Now, what is the proportion of students who read storybooks? This one, 318 over 1,000. But if we are asked how many students read storybooks, the answer is 318. So those two questions are different, and they also have different answers. Now, how are we going to obtain Q hat? Q hat is equal to 1 minus P hat. So, since the value of P hat is 318 over 1000, subtracting 318 over 1000 to 1 will give us 682 over 1000. So, this is the value of Q hat, or this is the proportion of the student who does not read storybooks. Now, next. For the second example, for the second one, we are asked to use 95% confidence interval to determine the proportion of all grade 7 students who read storybooks. Now, P hat here is 318 over 1000. Q hat here is 682 over 1000 based on what we have earlier, or what we have in letter A. Now, N, as we all know, that is 1000 according to this, 1000 grade 7 students. And since we want a 95% confidence, level of confidence, so the Z value, or the value of Z, is 1.96. Now, this is the formula. Okay. Now, let us replace the value or the variables by their values. Now, so P hat was replaced by 318 over 1000. Oopsie. And then Z, this one Z, is replaced by 1.96 here. Okay, P hat and Q hat was replaced by 318 over 1000. Q hat was replaced by 682 over 1000. And N here is 1000. On the other side, we have here same goes with this. Okay, these two are similar aside from the operation. Here we have subtraction, while here we have addition. So they are the same aside from the operation. So inserting this on your calculator will give us this 0.289 on the left side, and on the right side we have 0.347. So what else? So this is just you need to use your calculator if you want to solve this problem now. It is allowed naman, or it is allowed to use your calculator. Now, what is this? Nawala na. Yun lang. So, I hope you gain something on this video. I hope even though some of you I was not able to meet some of you with this video, matulungan kayo nito. It may help you to understand the lesson well. So that is all for today. That is all for topic on estimation and parameters. The long quiz will be up or was already uploaded on my website, pauljarelsantos.weebly.com. So that is all for today. Thank you for listening.